Hey guys, welcome back to Susie on the Farm. I'm so glad you clicked on my video. I'm Susie, the owner and creator here behind Susie on the Farm. I am a junk lover. I love to go thrift store shopping. I buy items that I can make over and sell here in my store along with everything vintage. I love all things vintage, all things junky. And in today's video, and all my Wednesday night videos are thrift store makeover videos. So that's what you guys are getting today. I have gathered some things out of my stash and we are going to transform them into beautiful items that I can resell. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. These are the items that I've chosen to make over in today's video. As always, sometimes these items, I don't get to all of them, and sometimes I will pick out more. It just depends on how I'm feeling and how things turn out. So these most everything here came from thrift store or yard sale. I think these were a yard sale. They are magnets. They're cute as can be, but they've got lots of paint problems. So we're just going to give them a paint job. Looks like we need to add a magnet back on that one. I picked up 2 big bags full of these, and I know that there's something cute we can do with them. Always pick up these cutting boards. They're great sellers. I got this one for $2.99. I have had this copper plate for a while and it is not selling, so I'm going to figure out something to do with it. I really wanted to sell these as is, but there is just a lot. Focus. Yeah, there's just a lot of problems, and they're not wood. It's some kind of really hard resin. These were $1.99 each. I've got some candlesticks, a matching set here, and another one that we can do. I like to do candlesticks in sets of 3. I don't know where this came from, but it's a neat little canvas that we're going to give a makeover. And I always pick up wood blanks. These were $2.99 each, and I've had them a long time. So I think it's time that we get them made over. So let's go ahead and get started. For our first project today, I'm going to tackle these wood blanks, and I'm going to begin by giving them 1 coat of Fusion mineral paint, and this is the color Oakum. This is the bottom of the barrel of this jar. I'm really working on getting through all my open paint. And I'm just going to give these 1 coat because after I got the first one on, I really like that you could still see the grain of the wood in it. So I'm actually going to embrace that, and then I'm going to sand it heavily on the edges to really bring back some of that natural wood from underneath and even over the top. So it really highlights that natural grain of the wood as well. Once I get it all sanded, then I am going to pull out the Mellows pages. And y'all, I try really hard not to use transfers or anything that I don't have in stock. And I'm sorry, I do not have this one in stock, but I really wanted to use it. My vision for these was immediately this transfer, and I had enough left to do these 3 just how I wanted them. So for the first one, I was able to do just a whole sheet, just put it on there and transfer it. For the second one, I did have to kind of piece together because I had used some of the pumpkins, I think, in the fall and just different. So, but it is really easy with the IOD transfers to just cut them apart. And so that's just what I did here. I just used all these vegetables up. I placed them, cut them apart, placed them where I wanted them, and rubbed them on. And this Fusion paint has a built-in sealer, so it is so easy once it's dry to put the transfers on. They really come off like a dream. I know I say that all the time, but it is really, really true. It's so easy. So I did finally get all of these on, and then for the third one, I am going to put the eggs on there. I wasn't sure about these eggs to begin with, but they go really well with the vegetables and the fruits. And these, I'm going to sell them all separately. And I have been asked many times to tell y'all the price of the what I price them at. And that's kind of hard for me to do because I sell on Whatnot a lot of times. And that's actually where I will be selling these. If I were to put these in the store, I would be selling them separately. But before I finish them up, I saw Jamie Ray Vintage do this, and I'm really, at this point, I'm thinking I might really mess these up. But I took the Vintage Textures Crackle Stamp, and this is another one that I am out of, and IOD also is out of stock. I put a little bit of vintage linen paint on it, and then I just stamped the little crackle image all over. I let it dry, and then I come back, I sanded lightly over my transfers, and I put a coat of clear wax to seal these. I did put a sawtooth hanger on the back, and I love, love, love how they turned out. I'm really satisfied with almost everything in this video. But if I were to price these in the store, I would price them each probably about $12 to $14 each. These are probably about I would say a 9 by 11. For these little wood hangers, I had a really good idea, and the ideas are actually just so, there's no limits to the ideas that I had for these. I'm only going to do 4 in this video. There are 2 of the little bit larger ones and 2, no, I'm doing 8, sorry. For the first ones, I backed them with book pages, and I just put the circles on my book pages and cut them out. And now I am using just a couple of little florals from the Wild Bloom transfer. I'm going to do some pink ones, and then I also do some blue ones to match. To glue them onto the circles, I'm using my art glitter glue. This is a glue that I use for paper crafting. So I'm using paper. I thought it would work, and it did. And it has this little bitty tiny, what is that called? Brain will not work. That where the glue comes out of it. So I was able to put it just right where I wanted it, and then I just centered it as best as I could. And after the glue dries, I will come back and trim off all of those excesses. For the next set, I had recently tea-dyed a bunch of papers for junk journaling, and I also did a bunch of these index cards, so I'm going to put them behind the others. I'm going to get out the Country Memoir stamp. This one has a lot of small images, so I picked out a little flower that would fit perfectly inside the little round frame, and I stamped it a couple of times onto the index card. Then I did the same thing, and I used it to cut out the image and glued it onto the back of the little round frame. You could really just about put anything in this. IOD has so many different stamps you could use, transfers, there's even some small little molds you could do. But I chose to keep these simple and just do the stamps in these. And I did the little birds for these, glued them on, and then I'm going to cut off the excess on the back. To hang them up, for the smaller ones, I just grabbed some neutral fabric. I think this is an ivory muslin fabric, and I ripped a couple of pieces. I tied them together using the fabric, and that's all there is to it. If you'll notice, most of this video is using a lot of neutral colors. Lately, I have used a lot of bright colors, a lot of different colors, so I decided to stick pretty neutral. So this is about most the color that you'll see in this video. For the ones with the blue flowers on them, I used a little blue ribbon, and the pink ones, I combined the muslin fabric and a little pink ribbon, and that just finish these off perfect. You could add these to wreaths. You could use these as ornaments. I have so many more of these, and I have so many different ideas that I had to really make myself stop because I could have just kept going and going and going. But they look so good in your home decor. I will also be selling these on Whatnot this week because I am having an Upcycled by Me show on Thursday night. And if I were to price these in the store, they would probably be about $8.99 for each little set. Just about anything that I could do to this would be an improvement. I really like the saying, but the colors and the design, not so much. So I'm going to begin by covering this, and to do that, I'm using weathered wood. This is a DIY clay-based paint, and I was putting it on. I thought this looks so much like the Oakum that I just used in the first project. However, it does dry much lighter. Once it was dry, I'm going to use the barnwood plank stamp, and I'm just going to randomly stamp these barnwood planks. I couldn't find anything the right size to fit inside that canvas, so what I did was turn it upside down and stamp it on that way, and it seemed to work out pretty good. So then I'm just going to continue on stamping different pieces of wood. I'll add some knots in there and some other elements of this design. This is a really cool stamp. It's great for background images, and I love it over this weathered wood. It looks so, so good. Once the ink has dried on this, and I'm going to break out a stencil. I got a bunch of these stencils on Amazon a long time ago. If I can find them, I will link them, but I really don't think that they are still available. I like this one that said flea market on it, and I never used it before. So now I'm taking some vintage linen, which is DIY clay-based paint as well, and I am trying to hold that stencil down as I'm doing this. I need a lot of practice at stenciling. It's not something that I do a lot, and just like everything, once you do it a lot, you get better. Since I couldn't find anything to put back there to hold that up, I did finally just put my hand back there and kind of push up as I was stenciling, and I had no idea how it was going to turn out. I had a little bit of bleed through in some places, but nothing too bad. It turned out pretty good, but I did want to take a little artist brush and just fill in it to make it stand out just a little bit more. I only did one coat because I was afraid that it was bleeding through. So I just used the artist brush to fill it in. And then once all that paint was dry and I was happy with how it looked, I did distress it just a little bit with some sandpaper. And then to finish it off, I sealed it up with some clear matte Tough Coat by Fusion. Now, a lot of times when you put a sealer over a darker paint like this, you will get some clouding, and I anticipated that happening. You can prevent that by adding some of the paint in with it, but I was okay with that on this one. I actually wanted it to happen, and I do like how cloudy it looks. I think it just made the sign look more authentic and more like weathered wood. What do you guys think about this project? Y'all have been so great about commenting on all my videos, and I can tell it is making such a difference. And if you will please just keep it up. Just give me a thumbs up on this video. Comment. Let me know which was your favorite project. Moving on to these magnetic roosters. I want to take it way back, and I started watching YouTube, and Ginger Chick Rehab was one of the first ones I watched back when she painted everything black and painted white over it and then distressed it, and I always love that look. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I spray painted those outside and I'm letting them dry. And in the meantime, I am using vintage linen, a DIY clay-based paint, to go over these 3 candlesticks as well that are already black. I did 2 coats on everything, and then I brought the roosters in. They were dry, and I did 2 coats on them as well. After all the paint is dry, then I'm going to come back with a wet wipe and I'm going to heavily distress all of these and bring back all that black from underneath. It's very easy to do with DIY clay-based paint because it's water soluble until it's sealed. So I didn't have to use any sandpaper, and I got these all distressed exactly how I wanted them. And then I came back and sealed them with either liquid patina or Fusion Tough Coat in a matte finish sealer. I did the same thing with the candlesticks, and I just love this look. To me, it's always going to be a classic farmhouse look, and that still sells for me here in Alabama. I'll style them all together, and like I said, I just love, love, love this look. Do y'all think that this look has seen its day, or do you still love it too? Okay, so moving on to this copper plate or platter. I really thought that this would have sold by now. It's just a great copper piece that you can accent, but it didn't sell, so I thought that I would do something with it. And I remembered I had this bull left from the Barnyard Masterboard. So what I'm doing here is just using a wet paintbrush to get a really organic tear. I was going to try to cut it, but I couldn't get it scored enough where I could see it. So I'm not going to paint the back of this or the platter. I'm going to put it straight on there. I do recommend a lot of times when you're decoupaging that you have a white background, but for this I really kind of wanted it to blend in and feel like part of it, and it had that burlap look on it to begin with. So that's really all I did to this. Hopefully someone will want this now. It is just got a little bit more character, and I love that bull on there. He looks kind of mad. I would probably price this at $12.99 in my store. We've got 2 more projects to go, and the last one is my favorite. But first, I want to show y'all these wall sconces. They were resin, and the paint was pretty messed up on them. So I'm basically going to do the same thing that we did with the black items, except for I'm not painting them black. And a lot of people will take the time to prep their glass or their mirrors and tape all that off. I never do that. I just choose to do the harder part at the end. And just scrape it off, especially using DIY paint, which this is the vintage linen that I have used throughout this video. It is very easy to remove it off of glass. I have a very sharp razor blade that I use to do that. And so I just get it all cleaned up, and I will finish cleaning it up after I do the distressing, which I am going to just randomly distress these with a baby wipe to bring back some of that wood color underneath. Love that look too. I'm just randomly going over all the edges with a wet wipe, and then I will seal all these up with some liquid patina. These look so pretty with just a little taper candle in them and a little bit of greenery around the candle. And I finally found a way to take pictures of mirrors so I don't have a bunch of crazy background, and I just put them in a corner and it worked perfectly. Finally, we are on to today's last project, and I have picked out the sweet little Highland cow rice paper from Connie Lines and Designs, and I forgot to tell y'all all of the products that I use to make over in my videos are on my website, susieonthefarm.com. I chose the multiple one that has different sizes, and this is the 5x7, and now I am fussy cutting out around the cow, which is quite tedious with this little Highland cow and all its little hairy ears. But the key to fussy cutting is patience. That's all there is to it. And maybe I like to use these long-handled scissors like this. It's easier for me. But I did eventually get it all cut out, and I am going to then paint just the back of it white. I do want this image to pop and these colors to pop off here and not blend in so much with the wood. So I'm going to paint the background of the paper white. I think I did that actually before I started cutting it out. Yes, I did. And that actually made the paper a little bit stronger and easier for me to handle as well. And then I am going to just do a really quick messy coat of the weathered wood DIY paint over this cutting board. I do not want to cover the entire thing. As a matter of fact, once it's dry, I'm going to sand a lot of it back off to make it look really rustic. And then I'm going to use some DIY liquid patina to decoupage the little Highland cow head down. And I'll use the liquid patina to seal up the rest of the paint. I tied a messy bow around the top using some homespun fabric, and that's all there is to it. And this is my favorite one of the day. I just love this Highland cow. It is so sweet, and I love making over cutting boards. I also want to invite y'all to join me over on Whatnot tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central. I am having a huge Upcycled by Me show, so everything in my auction is going to be items that I have made over. I hope that y'all enjoyed today's makeovers. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you again next Wednesday.